Shalom, greetings, Parashat Terumah. A sanctuary, a tabernacle, a temple is not a house built for the glory of God. What? I'm sure it is. But no, that's actually a pagan concept. The Jewish concept, the Torah concept, is quite revolutionary. How is it different than the pagan concept? Well, the pagan concept, of course, if it's built for the glory of God, it's got to have God in it. So you make an idol, you make a statue. And if you're Catholic, you do it in a different way. You built this magnificent cathedral, you walk in, you look up to the ceiling, which is a few miles up in the sky, and you feel very puny, teaching you that God is very great and powerful, and you are small. That's also built for the glory of God, but that is not the tabernacle that we are to build. The Jewish revolutionary concept is seen in a number of ways. First of all, in the wrong word. What wrong word? Well, the Parsha says, "They shall make for me a sanctuary, and I shall dwell in their midst." Wait a second. It should say, "They shall make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in it." Why in their midst? It seems to be the wrong word. You could explain it simply that the sanctuary was in the center of the camp, so if God is in the sanctuary, he's in the middle of the Bnei Yisrael. But the commentaries don't accept that. They want something more. And they say, no, it's as it says. You make a sanctuary for God, and God will dwell in us, each and every one of us. Like the old Hasidic song, Bilvavi Mishkan Evnei, I shall build a tabernacle, a sanctuary in my heart. Revolutionary concept, and this will help us explain some of the strange aspects of this particular mitzvah. First of all, God wants us to build a tabernacle, tells Moses exactly what to build, with measurements, with materials, with all of the artistic elements. That's unusual. Usually with the commandments, God tells Moses the general idea: live in the sukkah for 7 days during the holiday of Sukkot, and the oral law will fill in the blanks. Exactly how do you make a sukkah, the size, the schach, and so forth. But here, he doesn't say to Moses, make for me a tabernacle with an ark, with a table, with a menorah, with an altar, and let Bezalel have a great time using his creative genius. No, it doesn't do that. Bezalel is going to certainly have a great time using his creative genius, but he's got to make all of the items exactly as described, size-wise, material-wise, and artistic element-wise. Why not allow Bezalel some freedom? That's one question. Another question is on the commentaries, or the large part of the commentaries, who all of a sudden, instead of explaining the verses, start giving us sermons. They start explaining things that are very homiletical. Why are there poles in the ark? Why can't the poles be taken out of the ark? What is the importance of the table? What does it symbolize? It symbolizes Torah scholars. It symbolizes making a living. The menorah symbolizes wisdom, and so forth and so on. All of a sudden, they're giving us symbolic explanations, and it almost seems like those symbolic explanations are the actual explanations. That's kind of unusual. What's that all about? So the answer, I believe, is that God was telling Moses to make all of these things so that the people of Israel should not make a golden calf. What does it mean, should not make a golden calf? A golden calf is a representation or an intermediary to God. It's something for the glory of God. The people would worship the golden calf, and then the golden calf, by being worshipped, would be a conduit or an intermediary to bring their prayers and service to the true God. This is a terrible concept, and the Israelites fell for it. They fell for it 40 days after Moses was when he was supposed to return from Mount Sinai. They made a golden calf then, and then in the future, Yarovam, the king who split from the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin and started the 10 tribes kingdom of Israel, he didn't want his entire nation going down to his rival, to Rechavam, on the 3 pilgrimage festivals, so he put up 2 temples, and in them he put, you guessed it, a golden calf, an intermediary. He constructed a structure which he thought was for the glory of God, but that's not what Hashem wants. That's not the purpose of the Mishkan. I think that's why the commentaries are so homiletical and symbolic, because they are telling us that this building is not for God, it's for us to connect to God. It is God telling us how to connect to Him, how to live our lives, how to be a holy people. It is an educational process similar to the giving of the Torah itself. And that would explain why the rabbis say some beautiful and wonderful things. For example, the poles that carry the ark are never to be removed from it. Simply, that means that, well, as one explanation goes, that the Israelites need to travel frequently in the wilderness, and if the poles would be removed from the ark, and they need to go in a hurry, so then they might be disrespectful to the ark in getting the poles in. So therefore leave them in the whole time. But then we can go to the beautiful symbolic explanations, and they center around the idea that the ark represents the Torah scholar. It is, after all, the place where the tablets and where the Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote will be put. It's the Torah scholar, but it's teaching us that the Torah scholar is not the only one of value. The philanthropist who supports the Torah scholar, who helps them to make their ends meet while they dedicate themselves to the study of the Torah and the dissemination and teaching of the Torah, they are also equal partners in that important activity. Like the tribes of Zevulun, who were the merchants, the seafaring merchants who supported the Torah scholars of the tribe of Yisachar as they taught Torah to Israel, and they are both equal, they're put together. Excuse me. So the poles remain in the ark because they are a part of the ark. The supporters and the Torah are the same. That's one beautiful lesson. Another one I saw in the name of Rav Moshe Feinstein is how the ark itself was filled to the brim. The tablets and the Sefer Torah that Moshe wrote filled it up. There was really no free space inside. And that symbolizes the Torah scholar who must be filled with Torah. But the ark itself took up no space. How so? If you measured from one end of the ark to the edge of the Kodesh HaKodeshim on one side, you'd have 10 amot. Do the same thing on the other side, you'd have 10 amot. So 10 plus 10 is 20, but then you'd have another 2.5 for the length of the ark, so it should be a total of 22.5. But the entire width of the Holy of Holies was only 20, so the ark took up no space. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein to teach us that the Torah scholar, even though they are filled with Torah, must be humble and act towards the others as if they take up no space whatsoever. A beautiful lesson. An interesting question that is asked is, how come there was no ark in the second temple? We know that Jeremiah the prophet hid the ark and the tablets before the Babylonians overran Jerusalem at the times of the first temple. But why not make an ark for the second temple, even if it won't have tablets in it? We do something like that for the Kohen's garment, the breastplate. The breastplate, the Choshen, was supposed to contain the Urim v'Tumim, the stones that lit up in prophetic messaging. So we didn't have the Urim and the Tumim in the second temple, but we still made the breastplate and the Kohen wore it. Why not do the same thing with the ark? Make an ark, and if you can't put the tablets in because we don't know where they are, okay, but at least you'll have an ark. The answer is that the ark without the tablets is not an ark. The ark itself had two parts. It had the box and it had the cover. The box was very simple. There was no artistic ornamentation there. Yes, it was overlaid with gold, but that's as far as it went. It was just a straight rectangular box. But the cover, the kaporet, that's where the glory was. This was where the cheruvim, the angelic figures that looked at each other, whose wings were stretching towards the heavens, that's where they were located. Put that on the box, and then it becomes a very impressive thing. And the halacha is that the kaporet was not allowed to be put on the box if the tablets were not in the box. Because an ark without tablets is not an ark. Only when the tablets are in is it deserving of the glory of the cover with the cheruvim, and here too, and so that's why it wasn't in the second temple, because if there is no luchot, it's not an ark, it's just a nice box with a nice cover, it serves no purpose. And there's a lesson here also for us that when we respect a Torah scholar, it is not because of how they look, or how they talk, or anything external or superficial. It is because they have internalized the Torah, and they know it, and they teach it, and that is what brings the respect. The respect is coming through who we are and what we do, not what we look like or what people think we are. There's an important lesson there too. There are other homiletic lessons. For example, the table, which had the showbread on it, symbolizes the livelihood of man. We do not departmentalize. I have my spiritual life, and I have my business life. No, even the business life has to be in the precinct of holiness, in the Kodesh, in the Mishkan, in the sanctuary. Even when we are working, we have to keep in our consciousness that this is also service of God and it must be done in a holy fashion, needless to say, in an ethical and in a moral way. But not only that, we cannot separate it. We also have to put that as part of our service to God, even our daily lives, our daily work. And the menorah, representing wisdom, so that wisdom should not lead us astray. The opposite is the case. Wisdom also must be in the sanctuary. And there are 7 branches on the menorah. There are 7 different wisdoms. They face the central branch, which is the wisdom of the Torah, which must shed its guidance over all of the other wisdoms and intellectual endeavors of humankind. So there are so many important lessons in the Mishkan itself. And that in and of itself is the revolutionary concept of the tabernacle, of the temple, of the synagogue. It is not built for the glory of God. It is built for us to connect to God, to learn about God, to become inspired to be holier. And that ultimately is for the glory of God and for the glory of Am Yisrael. Like with the ark, it's not the box. Even the box is covered with gold. It's still just a box. But when the luchot, when the content comes in, then the glory of the kaporet comes on top, and then we have something very impressive. So as we have our synagogues, they're not built as monuments to how wealthy our community may be. It's certainly important to have an aesthetically impressive synagogue because it is conducive to being inspired. But the purpose of the synagogue, the purpose of the temple is to inspire us. And when we get inspired, we make a sanctuary, and then God will dwell in our midst because we will be holier people.